Hello everyone, it's Mike Levin, September 15th, Wednesday at about 9:30 a.m. and I was running early this morning and then I decided to take the one. Big mistake. On some mornings that thing is just a mess. You can't get a seat, the train is jammed shoulder to shoulder, and every stop people try and cram even more onto the train, and their backpacks keep the doors from closing, and what was already a jam-packed, miserable ride gets gradually prolonged. So I will try and avoid the one in the mornings. I think I've been doing it the right way. Always take the A in the morning in order to guarantee myself a seat, because I'm at the end of the line on the A, but not on the one, which is coming down from the Bronx and already has every seat taken. So into work and back to my prior rhythm of talking about the work I was going to do each day, and essentially doing a little test run of the videos I plan on producing later today, which are of the talking head coding style. I am at a point where I'm really ready to introduce the new Pipulate to the world. I've been calling it SEO Notebook, given that it lives and resides in Jupyter Notebook. It actually has that as a sort of dependency, as is Google Docs again. But now that it's so little code as an overall project, it is going to be easier to rewire this to other back-end database systems, because I am, with the exception of the actual update commands that interact with the matrix of data, I use the shelf API and the just standard Python dictionary objects, which is the trick to making your data manipulation layer portable between different database backends when you add such third-party libraries as shove into the picture, which makes your persistent file-based shelves, which are pickled Python objects, persistent written to hard drive objects, into mapping them to different name store or key value store databases. So you could use Redis, Amazon S3. You could probably even use standard RDBMS systems, relational databases like Postgres and MySQL. I'm sure these days they have it wired up. And if you wanted to stay extremely lightweight, you could use SQLite. And so it's portable. Much more portable than in ages past, and the hosting environment that it runs on is likewise portable, and I'm taking a significantly different approach than I was prior with Pipulate, which was to build the user interface with Flask, the one of the web micro frameworks for Python, and to build all the UI stuff myself. Now I have a new thing to play the role of the user interface, and that is Jupyter Notebook. Previously, I split user interface activity between a bookmarklet, which was very difficult to load it with commands other than start doing your thing, and a native in Google Spreadsheets itself. And that would be how you would set things up, parameters, so that when you said start doing your thing, it had a little bit of context and further instructions onto what that thing really was. In later years, when I implemented Pipulate after 360i Tiger, because 360i Tiger was completely bookmarklet based, there was no parameters other than do your thing. All the arguments had to come through the spreadsheet, amounting to nothing much better than config files. But when I did Pipulate, I built a basic user interface on, I ended up using Picnic CSS. The C of Picnic blends into the CSS, and I use that instead of like these JavaScript and CSS more heavyweight libraries like Twitter Bootstrap, Angular, Response.js. There were a bunch of these that were around, but they're just such large development platforms, and I didn't want to make such a heavyweight dependency. So Picnic CSS was all that I needed to build nice, lightweight, responsive user interfaces. And then I used a couple other things like web fonts. I would design all my glyphs into a web font. Let's see. And then just jQuery and JavaScript. And that was tedious, and there was so much to cover, and I had to, account for every case. And when Jupyter Notebook came along, it's like, oh, native Python in the web browser. It's not really native in the web browser, but it certainly looks and feels and behaves that way. And it gives you a portability layer. So I didn't need to stay lightweight. I was staying lightweight so that there was less to port and make run on different platforms, so that it was more likely to work, whether you were on a Mac, PC, or whatever. And in fact, I was pretty much keeping it running on the ultra lightweight Levinix distro of Tiny Core Linux, which I had created for very much the same purpose of how people are using Jupyter Notebook today, to be able to just hand something around that can run. In the case of Levinix, it would be a virtual machine, or at least the instructions for a virtual machine build that turned it into a Pipulate server with everything that you needed, so that you could visit localhost 8080 and start doing stuff with Pipulate. In this case now, with what's SEO Notebook, but soon will be the new Pipulate, this Jupyter Notebook uses that same localhost 8080 trick. They're running a web server with Python, same as me. It's just that it's Continuum IO, so they've created an incredible execution context, an incredible platform, and it's going soon from Jupyter Notebook to Jupyter Lab, which allows for real-time hooks to different input and output widgets. So Jupyter Lab becomes even more of a platform because it's got its more app-like I/O hooks in it than Jupyter Notebook does. So that's even more ideal. So that's coming down the pike really, really soon. Me porting whatever Pipulate is about to become over to Jupyter Labs. But for now, I'm keeping it in Jupyter Notebook because I'm making such great progress, and it's a wonderful way to introduce people to the latest rendition of my system, using as its hook the fact that I'll have integration with Google Analytics and Google Search Console, previously Webmaster Tools, all baked in, as well as a few other common things people need to do these days, especially in light of the next new evolution of our field, in which Google takes away easily acquired average monthly search volume data from the AdWord Planner tool, at least without doing a deeper dive of getting ready to actually launch a campaign. So anyway, that's my work today. My work is going to be to do a project with my system, to probably add the Search Console integration, which is most of the way there, and to create a video to sort of introduce people to the latest state of SEO Notebook / Pipulate. Anyway, thanks for joining me. Hope to see you again soon, and don't forget to subscribe.